All right, so what can only be described as one of the greatest betrayals in strength and conditioning history, Will Ratelle has just gone out and slandered RPE-based training. Will Ratelle is actually one of my favorite people in the industry. Like, I consider him a friend. And one of the things that I like about it is, like, so many of the coaches that I'm friends with, there's such a high degree of overlap amongst all of our training and coaching beliefs. And I'd say that Will is one of the people in the industry that I value the most, where there's like a reasonable lack of overlap in our coaching philosophy. But I also think he's a really reasonable, smart person. He's also a weapon himself, and he gets really good results. So I really enjoy that we can have these more productive conversations rather than just sort of slinging shit at each other. And yeah, despite the fact that me and Will often disagree about a couple of training concepts, we have a pretty decent overlap in our following. And commonly when we talk about subjects where the other one of us disagrees, we get our followers sort of tagging each other in our posts. And I mean, it can be a little bit annoying because it's like, I follow Will, I keep up with all his posts, you don't need to tag me in it. It also, like, and it frustrates me from this perspective of, it doesn't always come from this place, but I think a lot of the time people just don't want to think for themselves. And when they see two coaches that they look up to or that they've learned from in disagreement, they really struggle to make up their own mind about things. So please don't just tag me in one of Will's posts and don't follow up with like a question or something like that. Like, I see his content, I know what Will thinks about things. You don't need to just tag me in the post. If you have a question, by all means ask it. And I'm sure Will probably thinks the same. Don't just tag him in my posts. He knows what I think about a lot of these topics. Say something productive. Try to actually facilitate a discourse or facilitate the conversation. All right, with all that out of the way, now let's have a look at what Will said about RPE-based training, and I'll respond to it.
But it's why I'm not a fan of RPE. So I got tagged in a post by Angus Bradley. It was a post where he talked about injury risk regarding or relating to poor technique.
See what I mean? It's not just like RPE-based training. It's, you know, how we talk about technique. Anytime me or Will talk about it, it's like, oh my God, Angus, can you believe Will said this? I mean, that's what it feels like. Maybe it's not actually meant that way. That's what it feels like.
Me and Angus actually agree on that. So when I listen to him, it's like we both agree that, yeah, minor deviations from your lifting technique to what would be considered your standard lifting technique has a very negligible effect on increased risk of injuries. However, and now Angus, I like you. I like Angus a lot. Angus is awesome.
That was good. This is good content.
But RPE, so I do not like RPE very much. I think the scale is all messed up from people within their own lifting, like from set to set. People can't gauge RPE very well.
I mean, there's pretty solid evidence both in the published research, but then also just anecdotally in competition results with advanced lifters being very, very good at rating their RPEs of all their sets. And then when it comes to beginners, I personally feel like they're pretty capable of rating a set on a scale through 6 to 10. And even if they're not doing it correctly, I just don't care because they're still going to get results. The main thing is that we're encouraging people to train hard.
But anyways, so Angus put out this meme a long time ago and it just resurfaced. He might have reposted it. It's a meme and it's like, it says RPE users.
If you haven't seen the meme, go to my Instagram now and check it out because it's probably one of the funniest memes anyone's ever made in the history of fitness. Shout out to Jacob for collabing with me on that one.
And it's a guy like singing along to his favorite song, plugging in RPE 6, RPE 7, RPE 8, RPE 7.5, whatever it is. And then the other side of the meme is a guy who's like super stressed out, plugging in percentages. I'm gonna put this on the screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But the funny thing about that is, like, in reality, I think it's the exact opposite. I think in reality, the RPE users are the people who are super stressed out, overthinking, you know, how much perceived effort did I put into that set? Is it a 7? Is it a 7.5?
All right, Will's kind of got me here. I think he misinterpreted the meme, but I actually agree with what he's saying here largely. So the main thing that the meme was trying to highlight is just how I feel like RPE-based prescription really simplifies things on the coaching end. Whereas percentage-based training, it can be a bit of a pain in the ass because you have to calculate things based off your client's 1RM, and then on top of that, make some sort of calculated decision about what their level of daily readiness is going to be going into that session. So I feel like RPE-based intensity prescription just really simplifies things and makes life easy for the coach. You literally just hit one button and you've given someone a training intensity prescription where you've also helped them factor in their daily readiness. Whereas in order to do that with a percentage-based prescription, again, you have to calculate the percentage of their 1RM, or again, even just the idea of like picking an arbitrary number, not arbitrary, but picking a number between 0 and 100, or realistically 60 and 100 versus something between 6 and 10, it's still just a lot simpler at the end of the day. And then as well, if I want to sort of apply some level of daily readiness to that for the percentage-based prescription, again, it just takes a little bit more time to process that. With RPE-based training, all I do is think to myself, how hard do I want this person to work? Boom, and it factors in their daily readiness, because whether you're in shape or out of shape, RPE 9 is RPE 9. But where Will actually has a really good point, and it pains me to admit it, is so many people are still way too neurotic about their RPE ratings. You know, formerly I did hold this belief that RPE-based training, just with its slightly more flexible nature, made people less neurotic about their training decisions. What I've sort of learned in the last few years is that wherever you go, there you are. So neurotic people are just going to ruin any sort of training principle or any training system, no matter how good it is, because overthinking things and just stressing out over unnecessary details, again, that percentage-based, RPE-based, whatever the hell training prescription you're using, that's going to be bad. All right, let's keep going.
The reason I am like confident in what I'm saying right now is because Angus actually posted another post on Instagram listing the ways to make gauging RPE more simple. And I'll put that on the screen here too, but like I think it just kind of goes to show that RPE, though it's meant to be a more simplified way of prescribing intensity and internal loading, it's actually it's a lot less reliable than what a lot of people claim to be.
All right, decent point by Will. If RPE really is that simple, why do I have to make posts like this explaining it? And I would say that that's because I'm not the only one in this conversation. Like, it's like, you know, social media, the way it works is we've just got to scream into this void that a million other coaches are screaming into simultaneously, and it can be really hard to dominate the conversation. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm trying to dominate the conversation on RPE for S&C coaches, but it's mainly just the amount of stupid things and stupid beliefs that people hold about RPE that I'm trying to dispel that leads to these sorts of posts. So I'll meet you halfway there. One thing I'll say just about the reliability of RPE-based training versus percentage training. I mean, historically, you just can't argue with the results that people have got from percentage-based training. It's undeniable. Percentage-based training can produce world-class results. But if you look at what most of the world-class powerlifters are doing these days, it's RPE-based training. So I'm a little bit neurospicy, and I watch pretty much every single big powerlifting meet, both drug-tested and untested. And when you just go through the top 10s in every single weight class, in every single federation, you just see so much RPE-based training dominating the meta. Again, athletes won't identify this on open powerlifting, but go look up results on open powerlifting, go find the athlete, look them up on Instagram, and then see what coach they're tagging, and then have a look at their coach's page and see if they're a fan of RPE-based training. I mean, particularly when it comes to the drug-tested side of powerlifting, where the most talent is, RPE-based training has almost been universally adopted by a lot of the top lifters. And just off the top of my head, trying to think of some of the coaches who have the largest teams representing them at the world stage. You've got Joey Flex, exclusively uses RPE with his athletes. It's almost a meme how many world champions and world record holders he's produced. You've got Mike Tuchscherer, the king of RPE-based training. Again, just trains so many world champions, so many world record holders. You've got Marcellus Williams. I think maybe he uses a mix of RPE-based and percentage-based training, but I think sort of, again, favors like the principles that sort of underpin the RPE-based or auto-regulated training. Shout out to Kelly Mann. She's an Aussie coach who's one of the top coaches in drug-tested powerlifting, and I think she actually uses a mixed approach of RPE-based and percentage-based training. And something I want to highlight here is ultimately we are more interested, well, I am more interested, I'm sure Will is more interested in principles over methods. And at the end of the day, RPE-based training is mainly a method that was developed to help implement a more bottoms-up and auto-regulated approach. And even a lot of the coaches who have tried RPE-based training and are now shifting back towards more percentage-based prescription, they're still now, rather than giving someone a percentage, they're giving like percentage windows or percentage brackets, where we're still trying to implement this idea of auto-regulation, the hero's journey, and factoring in or creating some headroom for fluctuations in daily readiness. So not only does RPE-based training currently absolutely dominate the powerlifting meta, even coaches who are using a percentage-based approach as far as their methodology, principally, and this isn't a shot at Will either, like principally, they're employing ideas that sort of came up from this RPE-based system.
Anyways, I'm gonna do my next set here. 405, I'm gonna do a triple.
Did you have to mog me like that right in the middle of the video?
To judge your RPE more accurately, and it's actually really good advice. He says, hit heavy singles or doubles occasionally so you have a feel of technical failure. Great advice. Use AMRAPs frequently on your accessories so you have a feel for muscular failure. Great advice. Go with your knee-jerk reaction. Don't think about it for 5 minutes after the set. Great advice, which I kind of alluded to a few minutes ago. Film your lifts. Great advice. And don't be so neurotic about it. It's not that serious. Also great advice. The problem with it is that last piece of advice here. Problem with that is that RPE kind of facilitates being neurotic about it, where when you're using percentages, you can just take a look at the percentage and then you adjust based off of how your warm-up sets feel, which you for sure obviously can do that with RPE.
I mean, that's the whole point of RPE. That's an RPE thing. You can't claim that as a percentage-based concept. One of the major points of developing this RPE-based system was to factor in daily readiness and to have a simple and effective system for it. Again, the neuroticism comes up. As soon as you tell people that it's okay to consider their feelings when it comes to their lifting and their training, it does attract people that are maybe too much in their feels. But again, I think something, and it's a point I made before, neurotic people aren't just gonna have this seamless training experience with percentage-based training. Like I said, neurotic people are just a problem. And I think like as an industry, we need to talk about the perils of neuroticism and how it can impact the training experience and outcomes a lot more. And again, I think this is something where me and Will really see eye to eye. It's just, we're serious about training, but it's also not that serious. Let's just have a go. All right, and then he sort of moves on to some other topics. So I just want to leave some notes at the end of this, and I don't want you to think of these as a response to Will, because I'm pretty sure he's already aware of a lot of this stuff. It's more just for everyone else who's following along from this conversation so they can understand a little bit more about where the whole RPE-based training concepts come from. So fundamentally, I think one of the main reasons why coaches misunderstand RPE-based training is they have an outdated view of stress and how humans respond to it. Because again, like when I look at programming, again, if I had to sort of sum up what challenge are we trying to overcome with programming, it's the somewhat controlled application of stress to a system in an attempt to drive particular outcomes. And so one of the things about percentage-based training is it emerged from not just systems, but also societies that had this view that humans had a predictable and purely biological response to stress. It was always just thought of like training stress and the subject existed in a vacuum. Whereas nowadays we have a bit more of a sophisticated understanding of stress and how humans respond to it. It's not just a biological response. Thoughts, feelings, expectations, all those things matter to some extent. Not just that, but training stress and the subject don't just exist in a vacuum. And again, going back to this central premise of programming is the controlled application of stress to the system, then we've sort of got to reflect on who's really in charge of applying stress to this system. Is it me as a coach? Or in reality, is it, and you can apply this to professional athletes and general population, it's the same thing. As their strength and conditioning coach or their strength coach, it's rarely that you're at the top of the ladder when it comes to dosing the amount of stress in that person's life on a weekly basis. Again, for the general population, you've got their family, and then you've got their boss at their job, and then it's you. And then for the professional athlete, you've got the coach of their actual sport, and then the athlete's family, relationships, financial, just life stress, and then you've got you, the S&C coach. So if you agree with this perspective that training stress doesn't exist in a vacuum, and it could be useful to have a training prescription where it's easy to factor in this level of daily readiness without even having to predict it, this is why RPE-based training is so useful. And again, maybe this will seem like a little bit of an exaggerated scenario, but I think it sort of makes the point. Imagine you've got someone scheduled in to lift at 95% on one day, but they're at work before that, and maybe their boss just drops a huge assignment on their desk because again, he doesn't have your client's program in front of him being like, oh, better not give Johnny a hectic work assignment. He's got to max out his squats today. Or maybe when he's sitting in the car getting G'd up for the workout, listening to some music, his girlfriend calls him and breaks up with him. How the hell is he going to be able to hit that 95%? Actually, maybe that's a bad example because he'd be really G'd up, be like, I have to do this. But you know what I'm getting at? It doesn't matter what kind of state you're in when you're showing up at the gym. If you have an RPE-based prescription, you'll be able to get the intent for the workout. Traditional percentage-based training, it just doesn't have that feature built into it. And again, a lot of people are doing it these days because they've been influenced by the success of RPE-based training. Again, I point your attention to powerlifting, where the strongest people in the world are. Most of the best guys and girls and coaches are using RPE-based training. So it's not just this like, oh, I'm in my feels, oh, I don't care about training hard. All the best, not all the best, a lot of the best powerlifters use it. Whole idea of like, oh, I'm in my feels, I don't want to train hard, I'm just going to use my RPEs today to auto-regulate. It's not really like that. Like RPE, it's great for the dogs as well. It's not just about making your worst days better, it's also about making your good days better as well. So again, the stereotype is RPE is just for soft people who don't want to train hard when they're up against some adversity. In reality, it sort of goes both ways. Like, yeah, you've got the neurotic, soft people, but then you've also got these hectic people who are like, yeah, let's fucking hit a real RPE 9. And I sort of align more with those people. Shout out to my overshooters. All right, anyway, that's the end of the video. If you want to learn more about how we implement RPE-based training here at General Physical Preparation, check out our GPP Level 1 course. Maybe just check out some of the free programs down below. Also, make sure you check out Will's channel. He's posting great content every single week. And don't stress if your favorite coaches disagree with each other. Make a decision for yourself for once.